There's a new animated musical that's taking on one of the oldest stories ever told, and honestly, it has completely stormed the box office. We're talking about David, a film that's become a massive success and kicked off a really fascinating conversation. So what's all the buzz about? Let's get into it. First off, you just have to look at the numbers. We're talking $85 million at the global box office. I mean, wow! For an animated movie that didn't come from one of the giant Hollywood studios, that kind of success is a Goliath-sized story all on its own. And it's not just about the money either. This is where things get really interesting. Check this out. A 98% audience score on Rotten Tomatoes. People, the viewers, absolutely love it. But the professional critics? Well, they're a little more on the fence. And that divide right there is pretty much the whole story of this film. To really understand this movie, you've got to start with the man himself. The film really frames David's entire journey through these key phases of his life, as a shepherd, a poet, a warrior, taking us all the way from his super humble beginnings to his incredible destiny. You know, the filmmakers made a really important choice right from the jump. We don't meet some prince-in-waiting who's eager for a crown. Nope. We meet David as a shepherd boy who is courageous, deeply connected to his flock. There's this amazing scene where he protects a tiny newborn lamb from a lion. He is perfectly happy, completely fulfilled by this simple, adventurous life in the wild. And this one line from a song in the movie just nails that feeling. He sings, "I'm exactly where I want to be." He's not looking for power, he's not looking for fame, and that contentment, that peace with his life, is what makes the sudden call on his life so much more dramatic. It creates this huge internal conflict. What do you do when you're happy, but destiny comes knocking, loudly? And what a destiny it turns out to be! The movie just barrels through the greatest hits of his story. One minute he's being anointed by the prophet Samuel out of nowhere, then he's facing down the giant Goliath. Then he's forced to go on the run from a paranoid King Saul, and finally, he rises to become king. It's a real epic, for sure. So let's get back to that 98% audience score. What is it that people are connecting with so strongly? Let's take a look at what the fans and supporters are raving about. I mean, that is some seriously high praise. A lot of people are comparing it to the animated classic from 1998, The Prince of Egypt. They're pointing to its huge cinematic ambition and, just as importantly, its respectful approach to the source material. It feels like something fans of these big, biblical stories have been waiting a long time for. And the praise is coming from all angles. Reviewers are highlighting the absolutely stunning, movie theater quality animation. The music is getting called powerful and layered. And the characters, especially this really tragic and conflicted version of King Saul, are seen as emotionally deep. A lot of people have also pointed out the film's reverent tone and the respectful use of Hebrew language as a huge plus. But remember that split between the audience and the critics? Well, not everyone is singing this movie's praises. So let's pivot and look at the other side of the coin, the criticisms. And a lot of them really focus on the creative liberties the filmmakers took with a story that, for many, is sacred text. This slide really frames the whole debate perfectly. While fans are praising the amazing animation and the emotional punch, critics are zeroing in on some pretty major deviations from the biblical story. They're also questioning the musical style, which feels very modern, kind of like contemporary Christian music. And some, like Pastor Gabe Hughes, have even called the film's third act a real mess. So what exactly are these changes? Well, critics have gotten very specific. For instance, in the movie, David saves the lion that, in the original text, he's supposed to have killed. A really famous and important verse, "The Lord looks on the heart," is just gone from his anointing scene. And then there's a moment that gets talked about a lot where he tries to defeat his enemies with a song, which, by the way, fails spectacularly. For some viewers, these kinds of changes really undermine the original story's message. And this critique really cuts right to the heart of the issue with the music. Pastor Gabe Hughes points out this huge irony. You're making a musical about David, the guy who literally wrote most of the Psalms, the Bible's songbook, and you don't use a single one of his actual lyrics. You can see why, for some people, that felt like a massive missed opportunity. So, putting aside the on-screen story for a second, the story of how this film even got made is just as remarkable. It really represents a totally new way of thinking about how to produce a major animated movie. Which leads to the obvious question, right? How did a small, independent studio pull off a project of this size, something that can visually go toe-to-toe with Disney or DreamWorks? Well,
The answer is a true David and Goliath story in itself.
So get this, the film was produced by Sunrise Animation, a pretty small studio based in South Africa. They coordinated a global team of over 400 artists in 32 different countries. But the funding, that's what's really groundbreaking. It was largely crowdfunded. Future audience members, people who just wanted to see this movie exist, invested millions to make it happen. It was a huge undertaking that, as one producer put it, faced so many challenges. And all of this brings us to the final and maybe most important question that this whole phenomenon leaves us with. When you're adapting a sacred story, what's more important? Is it being faithful to every single word of the original text, or is it capturing the spirit of that message for a new generation, even if you have to change a few details along the way? The passionate debate over David shows there is definitely no easy answer.